Lovely, early summer's day. Would you please just go into the chat, and I'd love to know where you're from, please. Would you mind? Just telling us where you're from and what things are like there. Thanks. I see fellow Albertonian there, Rochelle. Lovely. So people, welcome to marketing in difficult times. Before I start, I'd like to just tell you a very little bit about me. I describe myself as a marketing enthusiast. Been in marketing my whole career. My first job in marketing was working for a company called the Nielsen Company. Were a marketing research agency. I joined them as far back as the late 70s, believe it or not. Maybe some of you weren't born back then. And I've moved into the world of marketing, and I found it from that day onwards absolutely fascinating. And I just continue to be interested in all things marketing. Wow, how marketing has changed over the years. And so we find ourselves in 2021. It's a world apart from what marketing was like way back then. Sometimes I think that my mission in life is to help others gain knowledge, gain wisdom. Knowledge, I think, is what to do. Wisdom is the right time to do it in the field of marketing. So it's always a pleasure for me to have you along, and hopefully I can help you in whatever way, big, small, help you get a better understanding of marketing as it exists right now. In one of the articles that I wrote, I describe marketing as half art, half science. Well, that's true, but I'm not sure if it's half anymore. Sometimes I think it's more like 60% art, 40% science, because the world has changed so dramatically in the last while. Not just in COVID, but in the connected age that we live in. And yeah. So with that, can everybody see my my slides, Zoom? So I'm going to talk about the 5 things that you need to know in marketing. This is by no means a complete list, but it's 5 of the most important things I believe that any progressive marketer needs to be doing right now. However, before I go in there, when I look at the environment as it is right now, here are 5 things that I'm pretty sure of right now. 1, things of business has been tough and continues to be pretty tough right now. And the other thing that goes with it is no one knows for sure what will happen next. But I believe there are some pointers. I believe that there are some signs that that business is slowly returning to normal as we knew it pre-COVID. But what is normal? There's going to be a new normal, I have no doubt. A new normal that will emerge, and yeah, we watch with interest how that normal is going to take shape. Things are it's not just my opinion, but a number of people have told me that maybe even in the last 2 or 3 months, there seems to be a slow turning around in the business environment. Let's hope that they're right. Let's hope that the trend continues, although it's never guaranteed. Here's a thing I'm absolutely sure of. There will be a turnaround at some point. I say this with absolute certainty. And the reason why I'm so sure is that it's not unusual in history for us to go through difficult times, be it depression, be it economic hardships, be it war, be it illness, whatever. But here's the thing that it always happens. There's always some point at which things turn around and go back to being normal. And this is no different. There will be a turnaround. Maybe it started. I can't say that for sure, but there will be a turnaround. However, what I am sure is that now is the time for action. If we wait for things to turn around before we get into action, I'm afraid in my book, it's going to be too late. Or it's never too late, but we're not going to get the rewards then that we're going to get by taking action right now. The other thing I'm sure of is that there are basic marketing principles that are best practice for marketing now or at any time or under any circumstances. And I'd like to go through those with you very briefly. The first of these is getting your business focused and understanding what makes it unique. We need to understand something that makes our business unique. I follow a company and I have an accreditation from them called MEC Labs. And they define a particular phrase called the value proposition. Now, there are many definitions of value proposition out there, but I like MEC Labs as one. Because the reason why I like it is because I've always found it to hold true. It goes like this. If I am your ideal prospect, why should I buy your company's product or service rather than your competitors? Why would somebody come to you rather than going to your competitors? What is that edge? What is that something? What is that thing that you give your best customers that your competitors don't? We need to understand that, because that is the thing that's going to differentiate us. That is the thing from a marketing point of view that's going to give us our edge. If we're just another player in the same space that our competitors are playing in, we're going to get beaten to the punch. So we have to have some element of differentiation. And that differentiation may even be a thing called positioning. How we want the world to see us. What is our positioning? We need to have some form of differentiation. I'm not talking about an easy thing. If this was easy, everybody would have a point of differentiation. But sometimes we have to go quite deep to find out what makes us unique, even if it's slightly unique. So that's the first point. So much of marketing, when I go out there and I look, people are talking about features and benefits. If you go to websites, and I spend a lot of my day looking at other people's marketing, I find people telling us how great they are, how good their products are, how great their service is. Well, I have some bad news for you. Everybody's products are great. Everybody's service is superior. That's not a differentiator. What is that? What is that thing that makes us unique? The second thing is knowing who your customer, of course, spelling error there, knowing who your customer is. Because part of that definition that I spoke about this is, if I am your ideal prospect, who is your ideal prospect? Why do some people come to you and go and not go to others? Who is it for? I was fortunate enough earlier in the year to attend a training course, Seth Godin's The Marketing Seminar, 60 weeks. Oh man, what wisdom, what wisdom. And Seth Godin poses this question: who is it for? The products and services and our whole offering, who is it for? Here's the thing: it can't be for everybody. If we think it's for everybody, we are missing the point, and we end up being for nobody. Who is it for? An equally important question: who is it not for? As I said, we can't be for everybody. There are certain people who may be in the market for what we have to offer, but it's not for them. There's something about what we offer that doesn't press their button, doesn't ring their bells, and that's not a problem, as long as we know who it is for. And here's a place where we can find out who it is for. Every business, and in my experience, no matter how good or how moderate the business is, have a certain number of customers who absolutely love you. Think about your best customers. They love you. They come to you. There's no question. They don't go anywhere else. There is something about what you provide that just works for them. What is that thing? What is it that makes them constantly come back? Because if we understand it, and if we can characterize what it is that makes those customers love us, then we can go looking for other people who are like those people. Yeah, I'm going to give you probably one of the most important things that I'm going to give you the whole day. We need to make sure in our marketing that we are customer-centric and not company-centric. When I go to websites, I see websites telling us our products, our service, our code of conduct, our whatever. And it's our, which is customer-centric. I tell you what, don't tell me how great you are. Tell me how you meet your customers' needs. What is it from your customer's point of view? I like the value proposition because if I could just take you back there, just very quickly, it says, if I'm your ideal prospect, why should I buy from your company's product or service rather than your competitors? And what I like about it is it's from the point of view of the customer, not from the point of view of us, because we need to understand what it is that makes our customers love us, who our best prospects are. The third thing, getting your messaging right. So there's a cliche that I've heard that I really like. In the modern marketing, as opposed to maybe marketing when I came back into it in the late 70s and early 80s, is like, it works like this. Don't ask for too much too soon. I describe that as don't ask for a kiss on the first date. Because you're asking for too much too soon, and if you ask for too much too soon, there's a chance that you could get rejected. I often liken marketing to dating. I don't know if there are many people who are dating at the moment, but most of us can remember a time when we were out there and looking for that person that we were going to share our lives with. Well, how did you go about it? Did you go and, let's say if you're a guy and you met a young girl that you thought could be quite pleasant, and go and ask her for a hand in marriage, or ask her questions like, do you plan to have children? Are you going to be a career mom? Whatever. You know what would have happened? You would have been rejected at square one. No, what do? You go there and you try and find some common ground, some chit chat, some things that maybe reveal a bit about ourselves as well as about the other person. And if you see there's a connection, then we can maybe discuss the possibility of getting together again. And then maybe at some point, there could be a first date. And if there's a first date, maybe things go really well, there's a second date and a third, and who knows how many. And one day, when all the stars align and everything's right, we can pop the big question. But you don't do it before time, because if you do it before time, you're going to be rejected. And marketing is very similar. We've got to be learned to play the long game. The marketing we do now is going to give us the best benefits in time to come. Yes, maybe we can get some, maybe it will give us some business right now, but that's exception rather than the rule. The best we can expect from our prospect right now is to get their attention. And when we get their attention, we should not abuse it. We need to get our messaging and our strategy right at the outset. We've got to consider the journey that somebody goes on from the time that they become interested in you to the time that they become your customer. There's many levels of progression in that journey. There's some twists and turns, and we need to at least consider the journey that the prospect is on. Just one sec, please. There's when somebody looks at our market, the best that we can hope for is their attention. And if they give us their attention, then we need to build a relationship. And many people describe this journey as the funnel. And so I have this funnel here. And so people, and I like the illustration because people liken the marketing journey, that when people give you their attention, they're coming into the top of your funnel. And over time, they move down, and eventually they find their way out of the bottom of the funnel as your customers. Now, I like the imagery. I think it makes sense, except for one important difference. I believe that the funnel is upturned. And people don't come in at the top of your funnel, they come in at the bottom of your funnel. And they work their way up, or you've got to help them work their way up the funnel rather than down the funnel, to the point where, when the time is right, they come out as our paying customers. Gravity is not our friend in the funnel. Gravity is not pushing people down. Gravity is pulling people out of your funnel. What is gravity? Gravity is many things, among other things. It's your prospect loses interest. Your competitors are more interesting. Gravity is, I just don't feel like carrying on with this journey. It's many things. It's gravity is, I don't like your messaging. I don't like the way you go about things. Gravity mainly is you're asking for too much too soon. You're putting me under pressure, and we lose those people, and they fall out of our funnel, and we don't see them again. And so, using the funnel, we have to understand that we've got to slowly work people up the funnel, and we call this working up, we call these micro steps. So we can't expect too much too soon, but we can hope that some people will take the next step towards us. And then once they've got there, the next step, and the next step, and the next step, until they've moved up the funnel and we've got their confidence. And then at that point, we can pop the big question. Over here is a thing called a fulcrum. It's like a seesaw. There are two things that have got that balance each other out. The one is the cost that the client is going to pay for doing business with us. And that cost, by the way, is not just money, although a lot of it is. The cost is what kind of effort you're expecting from the prospect. The other is the value, the perceived value that we offer. Oh, there's an illustration that I absolutely love to describe value. So listen to this. It's a European city. There's a guy standing outside the opera house. Opera house is this grand building. That night there's a big concert on, but at 5 o'clock in the evening, there's a guy standing outside the concert house, and he's playing the violin. And he's got his cap upturned on the ground, and as he plays, people come past and they put in some coins, maybe if he's lucky, some small notes. And this guy plays for half an hour, and at the end of the half an hour, he goes to his cap and he sees he's collected $32. Not bad for a busker. Later on that evening, the same guy, the same violinist, goes in and plays the major role in the orchestra. He's the virtuoso. He's the star of the show. And people sitting in the audience have paid hundreds and some even thousands of dollars to see him play. So outside the opera house, no one knew who he was. He played for half an hour for $32. Inside the opera house, he's the star. He played for thousands and thousands of dollars. I don't know, somehow that imagery just speaks to me. And so we've got to understand the value that we provide. And sometimes I describe that value as this. What problems that the customer has do we solve? What pain do they have that we take away? Because if we can find that, we can do, our marketing can work well. Part of marketing is understanding our relationship with our existing customers. We need to delight them. Are we delivering excellent products and services to the people that we're already doing business with? In marketing, in the textbooks, there are quite a number of variations of this formula. It costs about 1/10 to do business with an existing customer compared to doing business with a new customer. And so we need to be very, and whether it's 1/10 or 1/8 or 1/7, I think that 1/10 is right. This mathematical equation is true. And so we need to be very careful about our existing customers and making sure that we're giving them value that's going to make them stay with us. One of the things that I like is that I like measuring customer satisfaction. When I first came into this industry, there used to be a lot of customer satisfaction measurement. It seems to have gone out of fashion over the years. I'd love to bring it back into fashion. I think it's an exercise that is so valuable. Why? Because we may think that we're satisfying the customer, but that's just from our point of view. Sometimes when we actually go to the customer, especially if we get a neutral person to ask the question, how satisfied are you with XYZ? It's a reality check. They tell us, if they tell us they are, that's great. If they tell us they're not satisfied, very often, and I've seen management do this many times, they don't accept it. They say, well, the customer doesn't know what they're talking about. But we have a saying, that perception is reality. And so we need to be doing customer satisfaction to make sure that our perception of how well we're serving the customer matches their perception. Here's the thing. Trust is the most valuable marketing asset in the 21st century. Trust. The best brands in the world are highly trusted. Now, trust is a difficult thing because it takes years and years and years to build. And it can be lost in one day. And so we need to make sure that for those customers whose trust we have, that we never do anything to compromise that trust and that we don't lose that important thing that they give us, which is their trust. The fifth point is this: we need to keep in touch. We sometimes spend a fortune getting new prospects, and we need new prospects. Much as it's profitable to do custom business with customers who are with people who are already our customers, we've got to find new customers, because one day our existing customers might move away and we need some replacements. And if we want to grow our business, we need new prospects to constantly build that pool of existing customers. So people, and God bless them, my main business is in the area of prospecting and lead generation. And thank goodness that people spend a fortune getting new prospects. But it breaks me when they then forget about these prospects if they don't buy immediately. When I came into marketing back in the 70s, there was one of two outcomes. They either are customers or they don't become our customers. We had no perception of the customer journey. Now, years later, we understand that it's a complex relationship from when they get to know about us to when they become our paying customers. And we spoke about it in the funnel. We need to nurture them in that journey. We need to be moving the prospects up the funnel, micro steps I've spoken of. Here's the thing. We need to keep a customer database. Now, I'm in the world of database. And it astounds me, it absolutely astounds me that companies, even major players in their field, sometimes don't keep a customer database, or if they do, it's not in good shape, and effectively they are a good bit of it is no longer accurate. Here's the thing I found about customer databases, and I must have worked on a couple of hundred by now. Every time somebody brings us a database, 50% of it is out of date. It's almost a standard. 50% of it, the people have left, they're no longer in that role or whatever. So you may say, well, that's terrible to have a customer database and 50% of it is inaccurate. It's not usable anymore. But here's the thing. The 50% that remains is pure gold. Those are the people who know us. Those are the people with whom we already have some form of relationship. And we need to communicate regularly with both our customers and our prospects. Why? Because not everybody has a need for your product and service on the day your message gets to them. But on the day that they do have a need for a product or service like yours, who are they going to remember? Are they going to remember you? Or are they going to go and remember your competitors? Or are they going to go and Google the service provider, having forgotten that you're the obvious choice? And so we need to make sure that we keep in regular touch with both customers and prospects, so that on the day that they do have a need, they remember us. Personally, I'm a fan of newsletters, blogs, as a gentle way of keeping in touch. And we can offer tips and techniques, we can offer some wisdom. Not only are we benefiting the prospect by improving their maybe their knowledge, their understanding of the industry, that we're in, that they're in, but they're remembering us. When I say communicate regularly, people often ask me, how often is regularly? I say it depends. I can't give you a standard answer to that. It depends on your industry. There's some people who have rapid change in their industry, and communicating daily or weekly might not be out of line. But other people in other businesses, communicating daily or weekly would just be overloading and maybe a way of losing those people. For most businesses, if you're a business to business, I recommend communicating monthly. Some people do it every second month. Some people do it every third month. In my mind, that's about as somewhere in that range will work. So here's the thing I've learned about newsletters. When clients have tried to do it in-house and do it themselves. The first letter that they put out is great. All the things that they wanted to tell the client and the prospect are in there. Fantastic. The second one's pretty good. The third one starts getting a bit difficult. The fourth one, very often, we don't get to the fourth one. Why? Because we've said everything that we have to say. Yet this process of keeping in touch is so important that I recommend that you outsource the writing, the copywriting, if necessary, if you can't do it yourself. Some people have the knack of doing it, but they're very far and few between. So keeping in touch is this most important thing. And there are many ways of keeping in touch. And sometimes we've got to make a point of reaching the customer or the prospect. And sometimes we sit back waiting for them to contact us. Well, that could sometimes be wishful thinking, and it could be much more effective if we're reaching out to them. So with that, I want to ask this question. What's happening in your world? How are things going? I meant to ask you at the beginning that if you have any questions, could you please post them in the chat? I've kind of blown that one a bit, but still, you're welcome to post any questions that you may have there. I have some questions. Here are some of the questions that people have asked me. One of the ladies wrote to me the other day and she said, we're in an industry where we have to import all our products. And it is so difficult because the exchange rate changes all the time. And how do we do a business in this volatile environment? And so I asked her, how do your competitors work? Well, they do the same thing. They have to import. Are they subject to the same exchange rates that you are? Yes, we have. Well, what is it that you do that your competitors don't do? If not, you better find something that makes you a little bit more unique. Product Genesis asks a very similar question. How do you delight your customer if your value is defined by the price of your product? Well, it's a difficult question, not easy, but if your value is defined by the price of your product, I think that you can find a way to add value that is not related to the product. Maybe you can help the client with advice. Maybe you can help the client with care. Maybe you can help the client with something else that doesn't just relate to the price of your product. Can you add value to the product? Yeah, I'm giving you just a very, it's a vast subject, and I'm giving you just a broad overview. Liesel says, offers some really good advice. Help client with installments, or offer training on use. Thanks, Sir Liesel. These are, you're getting it. These are great points of value that we can add. How do we, the question from Lerato, how do we communicate frequently without annoying your customers? Yes. Oh, that's a great question. Well, I should have three things. One, don't overload them. Don't go to them too often. Two, be brief. Three, be interesting. When you communicate with them, those three things go together. Don't overload them. Don't expect them to spend hours and hours on whatever interaction, and be interesting. I had a client the other day, and he's written an ebook, and he very excited. He told me, I'm sending this ebook to all my prospects. I said to the client, I'm sorry, I really wouldn't do that. Why? Your ebook is 30 pages long. It goes into a lot of technical detail about the field that you're interested in. Even though your ebook might be free, there's a price with it. And the price is the amount of time and energy that your client needs to spend consuming it. Quite frankly, you're going to send them your ebook. I'll be very surprised if anybody actually reads it. Send the ebook to the people who are right on the top of your funnel. Now they know enough about you, they're interested in enough to read the book. But don't send it to the people down here, because boom, you'll lose it. Give it to them in small bites on a regular basis. Jenny, how do you see the Poppy Act playing a role in communication and engagement with your customers, especially new prospects? Well, here's an area that I know very well. Jenny, the Poppy Act, if you're going to use an external database, you need to have one that's Poppy compliant. And I'm really not trying to punt, but I happen to be in a database business, and we understand the difficulty for database people getting databases Poppy compliant. However, I say this, relevance is just as important as privacy. No, cancel that. Relevance is more important than privacy. Jenny, I see it day in, day out, that if you send a message to somebody and the offer is relevant to them, they respond to it. They respond to it. So the problem that we have in the marketing industry with Poppy is that no one knows to this day exactly how it's going to pan out. The parts of Poppy that most people hear about is the Poppy that applies to your bank and your doctors. They can't mess around with your information. However, marketing, Poppy and marketing is a gray area. It is principle-based, there are no rules, there are no wrongs and rights, there are principles. And so no one knows exactly how that's going to pan out until much later. Product genesis, procurement departments have limited insight into your product, and they often make purchase decisions based on price. Yes, that's a challenge for many businesses, but your challenge is to educate procurement people. Now find a way. How can you take that procurement person and change their worldview from lowest price to something that's at a higher level than just that. Rochelle, we do property, retail, commercial, and industrial. How do you go about finding new clients in new market with Poppy Act that is introduced? So, Rochelle, I I'm going to engage with you one-on-one on that. I have an insight. There are things that are allowed within Poppy, and in fact, the problem with what I read there is that well, there might be a problem, there might be an opportunity. The fact that so many people are moving out of commercial, have moved out of, have gone and working remotely. However, are they coming back in is the question. I'll engage with you, if you don't mind, one-on-one. Bert, how does one measure marketing effectiveness? Yeah, that's a complex question. I suppose at the end of the day, the bottom line is you would expect, if your marketing is working really well, back that your profits, your financials should show it. But there are many ways of measuring marketing effectiveness. One, the size of your funnel. Two, the number of new customers coming in. Three, the number of old customers that are staying in, among others. Liesel and Michelle, I'll be happy to talk one-on-one with you with Poppy. I have another presentation that I've done, which is specifically on Poppy, and so I don't have another. It needs an hour or so to do justice. So I'm not going to answer your question right now, but I'm going to speak to you, and I'm going to invite you. There a few talks that I do. One of them is on direct marketing in Poppy and the state of the world as it is. So people, what can you do for me? Here's the thing. I'm trying to build a community of people who are interested in marketing. And so, sorry, I've just... with that, I have some regular events besides this one, and I want to invite you to the next, on, just want to get this date right, on the 20, on the Tuesday, the 26th at 2. Tembani, that link that link to my masterclass, if you could just post that in the chat. I really would like you to join me on Tuesday afternoon, this coming Tuesday, for a talk. I know that there's some people in this audience who've already seen, so there's a talk that I'm doing called, because we've just taken a very simplistic view. What I do in the masterclass is to take a deep dive. So there's a talk, it's once again, it's completely free. It's talking about a phenomenon in marketing called the adoption curve. Now, when you go out into the market, you have different people at different stages of their development as far as your product is concerned. You have the early adopters, which are those people who are always willing to try something new. You have the next phase of people, once they've seen the early adopters, the next group come in and start. Then most people wait for either one of those two groups to use a thing and see how it works, and then they come in, they're the middle adopters. And then the late adopters, when they've seen early and middle adopters using it, then they understand, well, everybody's using this product. It's about time that I use. And then finally, you have your laggards who are either adopt the technology very late or maybe never at all. Just think about cell phones. If you can, those of you who were around when cell phones first came out, who were the first few people who had cell phones? They were the people who were really fundies. They were the early adopters. They walked around with their cell phones and wanted everybody to see them using this great new gadget. Some people saw what the early adopters were doing and said, oh, that could be something quite useful. So that the next stage, another group of people came and they saw what the early adopters. Still, not everybody had a cell phone. Then at some point in time, you had the next stage where people saw what these first two groups were doing and said, man, you know, I'm on the road in my business and that pager is a pain in the ass. Let me get a cell phone. And then finally, and then in the next two stages, your grandmother said, everybody else has got a cell phone, I should be getting a phone. And finally, the laggards, the people who are married to their landline, eventually their landline was removed. And these days, everybody, even the laborers who are digging in the streets, stop to answer their cell phone call. So we're going to take a deep dive into that. Please join me. And please invite anybody else that you think may be of interest. I'll give you more details when I write to you. And please, I'm going to, from time to time, I'm going to be sending you information on the masterclass and some of the other offerings that you can. My motivation is to help everybody improve in their marketing. Do I have paid services? Yes, I do. I do training, I do consulting, but it's not about that right now. I'll let you know about what I do and the paid services at a later stage, and maybe you can take me up on one of those services. Hey, but even if it's not for you, even if you're not taking up one of the paid services, I want you to stay in touch with me as we take one another along on the marketing journey. So people, I try to do 45 minutes. I've gone a little bit over to 49. I'm going to be writing to you this afternoon. If you have any further questions, I'll be more than happy to do my best to answer. Not that I know everything, please. If I should try and come across as a know-it-all, that's not true. Go and register on this link for that masterclass that's going to happen next week. I'm sure. I thought it was pretty good the last time I did it. I'm maybe a bit biased. And thank you very much. Thanks for all the kind wishes to Liesel and Rochelle. I'll be in touch with you shortly. Thanks very much, everyone. And I'm going to say goodbye and look forward to bumping into you somewhere along the way. Goodbye.